Well, I'm hoping to convince you to never buy granola again, because you really don't have to, because we are going to be making the fastest and the easiest granola recipe that I have ever made, and I think you're going to love it. I'm Judy Matusky. I'm a registered dietitian and culinary nutritionist with Athens Nutrition. And I'm back again this week with another. This is a 5-ingredient recipe, which is great. Super easy. This is a granola recipe that you really can kind of get it in and out of the oven in about 15 minutes and ready to eat soon after that. So I really wanted to share it with you. It's a recipe from Food52 Simply Genius cookbook. I just couldn't resist it, and we are using tahini again. So if you were with me last week, or if you saw the recipe for the tahini brownies, which by the way are absolutely delicious, I have some, I actually put them in my fridge. They're so moist and so good. For me, I absolutely love them. I think they're actually my favorite brownie. So if you did not see that, the video last week, just check it out. It's on our Facebook Live page. It's on the Athens Nutrition YouTube channel as well. And we always have our recipes on our blog, which is judymatusky.com. So these recipes and videos live kind of all over the internet between Athens Nutrition's social media, so you can always find them. But anyway, we're using the tahini again, and I thought that would be a good idea because sometimes we buy tahini, certain ingredients, and then we use it once, and then we put it in our refrigerator, and then we don't really use it again. And I just, I don't want anybody wasting food. So let's use this again. So tahini is a perfect little complement to granola. And what I love about this recipe is there are a couple things. So first of all, it's absolutely delicious and fast and easy, first and foremost, right? But it's also really healthy, which is what granola can or cannot be. So sometimes granola, I think, is more like glorified candy bar, or like those granola bars. They're just so sweet, and they have so much oil usually added to them. And what I love about this recipe is that the tahini replaces the oil. So we're not adding any additional oil at all. The fat, the healthy fat, is coming from the sesame. So remember, tahini is a sesame butter, or a sesame paste. It's just ground sesame seeds, and it's a very heart healthy, really a good fat to be adding to our diets. So we're gonna just start making this because it's so easy. It takes a half of a cup of tahini, and I pulled this out this morning. I'm like, oh wow, I hope there's a half a cup in here. I think there probably is. Now with tahini, although I'm kind of down at the end of the jar, just like your natural peanut butter, I usually keep it in the refrigerator. I turn it upside down on its lid. And then you do need to stir it, because just like natural peanut butter, the solids are going to sink to the bottom of the jar. And then, you really need to stir them up, or you're going to end up with just mostly the oil. But what's interesting with tahini and making this recipe, I haven't tried it with like an almond butter or a different kind of nut or seed butter, but I don't know that it would work as well, because I think what's really great about tahini is it's thinner. It's a thinner butter compared to other nut butters, and I think that's what's helping to coat the oats, and that's why you don't need any extra oil. And that's what I kind of like, because it's not that maybe adding an oil is necessarily an unhealthy thing, but when you're adding oil, we're really not getting a much other nutritional benefit, from the oil per se. So with this, we're getting all these this nutritional benefit of some extra vitamins and a little bit of calcium, and there's some iron in sesame seeds that also are with the oil and the fat that we're using. So it's kind of like that, when we can use something that we're getting, it's working, it's sort of serving a role and playing a role in the recipe to help the recipe, but it also is bringing some really good nutritional value as well. All right, and I finished up my jar, so I'm going to need my spatula. So that we'll put aside. I'm gonna save that jar. I always save my jars. I hope you do too, because they're fantastic, especially a big one like that. I'll wash it out, save it, and then when I'm making things, can use it just to store things in if I need it in the fridge, or for anything, freezing things. But just hang on to your jars. Okay, so that was just about. It's a little shy of a half a cup, but I think we're fine. And then it's going to be a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm just gonna. Sometimes put a little more, so maybe it's more like 2 teaspoons, but teaspoon of vanilla. And then just the sweetness is just 1/3 of a cup of maple syrup, and that's it. So it doesn't call for a lot of sweetness. Now with tahini, you do need a little sweetness, obviously, in this granola, but also because the tahini, as I mentioned, does have I mean, like a pleasant bitterness. It shouldn't be so bitter that it's unpleasant. It just has a natural bitterness to it. Sesame seeds just do. So the maple syrup really kind of balances that bitterness. It doesn't make it go away completely because you're going to know tahini is in this. And if you like that flavor, then you are going to love this granola. But I like it. I like the granola because sometimes granolas that you're buying can be so sweet that it's like so one-dimensional in its flavor, where I love this tahini because it gives this interesting background flavor. And sometimes you're kind of like, if you don't tell people, they'd be like, this is really good, but what's in here? It's a little nutty. And then there's just like I want to say savoriness, but it's not. I mean, it's still a little bit sweet. It's obviously it's a sweet granola, but not as sweet. And that's what I love about it. All right. So, and then we're just a pinch of salt. And that's the other thing with tahini. If your tahini does seem a little bit bitter, so a little bit of sweetness will help with that, and salt really cuts the bitterness a little bit. Now, the tahini shouldn't be that sweet, that bitter. If it is, that might mean that you just have an old tahini, and then maybe get rid of it and get a fresh one. So yeah, it shouldn't be, an unpleasant bitterness. All right, so now I'm just going to stir this around. Just, real quick in the bowl, just to kind of bring everything together. And now we're just going to add the final 2 ingredients, which I said this is 5 ingredient. Oats. Now, if you want this to be gluten-free, you can. So just get gluten-free oats. So this becomes a gluten-free recipe. So it's 2 cups of oats. And this it says it makes 4 servings. I don't know. It makes more. I don't really eat. When I'm using granola, I'm often just kind of putting it on my yogurt or mixing it in with some cottage cheese or having it as a little snack. I don't tend to eat granola as cereal, but you certainly could. This would be great as cereal with some milk. So I don't end up using as much, so it lasts a little longer for me. All right, and now the recipe is this pistachio tahini granola. You can use any kind of nut. You can use pecans, you can use walnuts, you could use almonds. The pistachios, I think, actually complement the tahini really well, and they're kind of pretty with their greenish kind of color. It's about a 1/2 cup to a cup. Depends on how many nuts you want in there. Sometimes I want more nuts in my granola. Sometimes not so much. Sometimes I just skip the nuts altogether and I just do the oatmeal. So it's up to you, but. So you can do that if you wanted to skip the nuts. But in the original recipe called for the addition of chia seeds. I kind of left them out. I just wasn't sure we needed it. We've got the tahini, which is already a seed. It's sesame seeds. And we have the nuts coming in. I don't know that we need a 3rd nut and seed addition to this from a nutritional perspective, but you certainly could if you want to. You could add a couple of different types of nuts to this, whatever. All right, so now we're just going to mix it together. And then we're just trying to get, all the oats and the nuts just coated with the tahini mixture that we created. So this is how it looks once you have it stirred together. So it looks kind of wet, but it's just not as oily as some other granolas can get, because usually there's a lot of oil added to granola. All right, so now you have a lined sheet tray, and I'm just going to spread this out. It's almost like you're making one big granola bar. So just press this down, and then, you're just trying to get it as even as you can. If you wet your hands a little bit, it makes it a little bit easier to maybe press out. Let me just get some of this off my spatula here. All right, so as even as you can get it. It doesn't have to be perfect, because you're going to be breaking this up anyway, so it doesn't even have to. You can have little gaps between as you're baking. Now the thing is a 350-degree oven, and you're going to probably want your rack set at the middle. It's the middle rack of your oven. So you just don't want this. The one thing you don't want this to burn. That's the one thing with tahini, because tahini is as any nut or seed. If you're roasting them, you don't want them to burn, because if you start to burn a nut, or a seed, it gets bitter. It gets really bitter. It's not a really pleasant flavor. So we want to just keep an eye on this, but basically, this looks pretty good. You don't want too many stragglers off at the edges, because you don't want those to get too brown before the inner part of the tahini gets done. The granola gets done, but we're going to stir it anyway halfway through. All right. Let me just put this off to the side, rinse my hands. This is going to go in the oven. Now, we're going to put it in for 10 minutes. So it goes in for 10 minutes. And then halfway through, you're going to want to take it out and stir it. So you kind of want to bring those pieces that are the outside edges, just kind of stir it a little bit, bring them to the inside, and just, you know, mix it up so that you get some even browning. So I'm going to put it in, and it's going to take 10 minutes. So I can show you the one that I've already done. So let me just pop it in. So like I said, I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And then I'll pull it out, I'm gonna stir it around, and then it goes in for like another 5 minutes. I would say 5 minutes for sure, because you're gonna wanna keep an eye on it. Like I said, you don't want those edges to start to burn, but you just want it to start to look drier, a little bit golden. It's not gonna get real golden, but a little bit golden, a little bit drier, and that's when you take it out. So 5 minutes, might take a little bit longer than 5 minutes, you just wanna check it. So I made one, I made this one 2 weeks ago. I was gonna make another one, and I thought, wait, I already made this a couple weeks ago, and I still have some. So, and it's still great. I mean, I have it in this jar, and you can hear it. You hear how crunchy it is? I mean, you can hear that little, obviously, the sound that would make it a crunchy kind of granola. And, you know, we've got some big nuggets here, smaller nuggets, whatever, you know, whatever size you want. Now I have walnuts in here. I made this one with walnuts rather than pistachios. I love walnuts, and I just usually put walnuts in granola. Sometimes I don't think I had pistachios at the time. So this one was made. So what's gonna happen is when you take this out of the oven, when you know it's done, take it out 10 minutes, stir it, put it back in for another 5 minutes, keep an eye on it. When you think it's done, bring it out. Then let it just sit and cool for, I don't know, 10 minutes on the cookie sheet. You're gonna be like a little bit nervous because when you take it out, it seems so soft, and you're like, oh my gosh, did I do something wrong? No, it's soft when it first comes out of the oven. After it sits for about 10 minutes or so, you're gonna see it starts to crisp up. So once it cools off, it gets crispy, and then you can break it up. And like I said, store it in a pretty airtight container. I just have this in my cabinet with my other cereals. And like I said, this has been 2 weeks, and it still tastes great. The longer it goes, I think the recipe says about a week or so. I have 2, it's fine. I think it can last. If you think you really aren't going to use it quickly, then I would freeze it. I'd put it in the freezer and then pull it out when you want it. It would stay a little bit fresher. So anyway, that's our tahini granola. So I really hope you try it. It is so easy, so delicious. You're gonna, you know, put it on your make, you know, yogurt parfaits with it, you know, snacks for the kids, whatever, you know, any way you want to typically use your granola, but don't buy granola. I mean, you can make it so easily, and it's just, you're going to make it so much better, not only from a flavor perspective, but also just a lot healthier. And this is even a little bit lighter because we're not using all that heavy oil. All right, again, thanks for joining. I'll be back again next week with another fast and easy and delicious and obviously very healthy recipe. Reach out anytime if you need some support with your nutrition. We are here to help you. We work virtually 100% with anybody throughout the state of Pennsylvania. You can just give us a shout. You can email us, you can message us, and we can set up an appointment and chat with you and see what your needs are. We do accept some insurance, so sometimes insurance will pay. Often they do. We're not in network with all insurances, but we are in with several. So again, weight loss is our specialty. If that is a concern for you, particularly from a medical perspective, that you're finding that you might need to just, you know, looking at just a healthier kind of weight for you based on maybe elevated cholesterol levels or elevated blood sugar levels or blood pressure. That's really, again, that's what we do. We really specialize in cardiovascular health, just general health, and just healthy eating in general, as well as for anyone that, you know, any adults, you know, I work mostly with women 45 and up, but we also have a dietitian that works with us that works with a younger group as well. All right, anyway, stay well, stay healthy. Remember, cooking is a very powerful health behavior. Do whatever you can to kind of get it in the kitchen and enjoy it. You know, make it fun. Tell yourself that you really do love to cook. And then I think the more that you tell yourself that, the more you'll believe it. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.